So, how are you today? I'm doing pretty good. So, I would like to talk to you today about how I conquered my social anxiety. I was actually watching something on YouTube and I put a comment up there because somebody had talked about wanting to be brave, like the video demonstrated, and I said, "You can do it," and blah, 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 blah. And somebody else responded and said that they wanted to know how I did it. So, let me explain if you don't mind. Um, I remember when I was a kid that I was kind of shy sometimes, but I had a lot of friends. Um, and at some point, though, between the inherited social anxiety that runs in my family, and the bullying that I dealt with as a child, I kind of started to withdraw. And it wasn't fun because it got to the point where we would drive down to my uncle and aunt's house, and it would just be, the two families together, and I would feel uncomfortable with people I was very close to and loved very much, but I would feel uncomfortable with them. So I'd go out and hide in a room somewhere and read or play video games or something like that because I felt so uncomfortable. Well, that wasn't good, obviously, but I didn't know what to do. When I was in my 20s, now this would have been in the age of the dinosaurs back in the 80s, the 80s and 90s. I got into the online scene with what were called bulletin board systems, where people would run special BBS software on their computers, and you could dial in through your phone line using a modem on your end, and they had a modem on their end, and it was, a one-to-one connection. You couldn't go somewhere where you'd be talking to 500 people at the same time until a few years later, when that technology became available. So when it got to the point where I was able to communicate with multiple people at the same time online, before the internet now, I would go into chat and talk to different people, and I even met some of them. I knew some of them because I ran a bulletin board myself. So I already knew several people, and some of them were on these multi-line systems. There was one that was very famous in Milwaukee called Online Data Systems. In fact, it was a direct competitor for another business one that was called Exec PC. And the two guys that ran it, and they're actually famous, but I'm not allowed to tell you why they're famous, I don't think. So I better not say anything because I don't want to break my promise to them. Anyways, they ran this system, and they would periodically have events for all the members, which was great. There would be, every year there'd be the anniversary party, or the birthday bash they'd call it, and there were camping trips that we went on, and we would have meetups where we'd have dinner together and talk. We would have picnics and some other stuff as well. And once I became active with that, I would often volunteer to help, kind of be staff for that. So, I help with setup and interacting with people and shutting things down. But I had social anxiety, so what could I do? Well, I had been learning about things like meditation and about fear and mindfulness and stuff like that. And I learned that even before I knew about Eckhart Tolle or any of the others that promote mindfulness, I had come to realize that there was something I could do. And I don't really know how I came upon it other than just through reading a bunch of different books about mindset. I also managed to, over the years, get rid of 4 phobias. I don't have any phobias anymore. I got rid of the last one by donating blood for my wife's struggle with cancer in 2016. That was my last step, and this year I'm going to be starting to donate blood now that it's been long enough since I left Indonesia. So I was at a Renaissance festival near the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, and there was a lady there, and like everybody else at the Renaissance festival, she spoke with a British accent, and I started looking at her spandex because it was bright. It was interesting to look at. And she got me to try on some pants, and then when I stepped out, because she encouraged me to step out of the changing room, and she was an attractive woman, so it was, kind of nice, right? So I came out of the changing room wearing these tight spandex, and she pulls me out in front of the shop, and she starts calling out, "Man with a nice bum here! Man with a nice bum!" And so I was both titillated and mortified at the same time. But I think I enjoyed it more than not, and it made me kind of feel good about myself. And I bought some spandex that day, 1 or 2 pairs. And so I would go to these events. Now, you have to understand, I was a very plain Jane dresser. I had plain colored shirts and the occasional plaid, but mostly plain because I kind of decided I didn't like plaid anymore. And blue jeans. So you'd see me in a one-color shirt and blue jeans all the time. Pretty tedious by my current standards. So I went to these meetings, these get-togethers, or GTs as they call them, wearing one of my t-shirts, but I'd also be wearing my spandex. And there'd be some women who'd kind of be flirty with me and smack my butt or pinch it or make a comment. I mean, I don't know why I don't have a butt. It's like pretty flat. But and it made me feel kind of good, and I felt like, okay, well, let me just read to you what I just wrote to the person who asked me this. He asked what I did to make the change so that I could overcome my social anxiety. Here's what I wrote. One way to overcome social anxiety is to change something superficial so you feel like you're someone else temporarily. And then put yourself into a situation you feel less risk, where you feel less risk of being embarrassed. Does that make sense? So you're doing something that may make you feel strange, but you're putting yourself into a social situation where there's less risk of people judging you. And I'll get to that in a second here. Choose clothes that are very out of character with your normal style. If you feel that your new look will not be accepted in a social situation involving friends and family, find a new situation where there's less risk. This allows you to take your mask, so to speak, to a new level by also altering your behavior, since people won't know what to expect anyways. What I mean here is if you're joining a club or a social group where they don't really know you, or almost none of them know you, they don't have any expectations of what kind of behavior you'll exhibit. Therefore, you're free to explore. You're free to do whatever you want. You can become a completely different person. And thereby, doing that, you can set aside your ego that's making you afraid. Anyways, so I guess you could call it the masquerade effect. In my case, like I said, I bought spandex, right? I would never normally dress that way, you see. And so it was already a risk for me. In for a penny, in for a pound, as some people say. Then I would go to the events involving people I knew online but mostly didn't really know. I was known for certain things online, but everyone knows that online and offline behavior are often very different. And that gave me the freedom to step out of my fear and enjoy myself in my role as Spandex Man. I was friendly and sociable, cheerful, gave a lot of hugs, and introduced myself to lots of people. I made some friends, and I even lost an online friend because he couldn't accept it. He did break off our friendship politely, though, and privately, which was very mature. But that was his loss. I didn't have to worry about what people thought of me because they didn't really have any expectations that mattered. I did this many times over a period of years, and it made all the difference. So by taking advantage of this masquerade effect, I was becoming somebody different, putting on a mask temporarily, which maybe you don't want to go somewhere just like this because people might misunderstand, and some people can be pretty vicious that way. But just change your physical appearance, clothes, makeup, whatever I mean, obviously you don't have to do plastic surgery. That would be not something that I would recommend, okay? I'm talking about something that allows you to temporarily step outside of your fear so that you can feel what it's like to not be afraid. And then you can return to it, and over time you'll discover that the fear decreases and decreases and decreases because you're having all these positive experiences. Now, let me continue my story. I was also learning about fear and being more aware, like I said. So when I say aware, it's a higher form of consciousness in which we see and acknowledge what's going on inside of our heads, but we don't let that control us, those emotions. So we know they're there, we acknowledge them, but we don't let them take control of our thought processes through the amygdala and other things. The amygdala, for those of you who don't know, is a primitive part of the brain that reacts to emotions and causes us to panic and even behave in very dangerous ways toward ourselves and others. I learned about meditation and even taught myself how to fall asleep in seconds, even at work. Of course, I already knew about hypnosis, but I wasn't using hypnosis. And I didn't use hypnosis on myself. It was something else. It was my own technique that I developed. I still have social anxiety, but I can overcome it now. I have had powerful conversations on the bus with complete strangers by choice. For example, I've also taught my daughter how to deal with her own fear, that she's to the point where she could first sing as part of a choir in a concert, and now she can sing a solo at a concert. Her knees were knocking, but she did it and wants to do it again. She went to the state competition and sang in singing competitions too. So that's a big step in the right direction. Ultimately, fear can ride us, or we can get it off us. It may linger, but consistent effort will reduce and sometimes even eliminate it. I've eliminated all form, like I said, of my phobias with what I've learned. I hope that what I just shared with you will give you some ideas and help you. And remember, changes take time. You shouldn't expect it to be immediate, and you shouldn't expect success the first time. I got lucky, maybe, or maybe it was because I'd already adjusted my mindset to the point where success was was destined. Because we determine our destinies. So why don't you determine your destiny and start taking the steps you need? Find something outlandish to wear or just very different from what you normally wear. Find a group of people you don't know. Go there and just be somebody else. Then come home and you can put your own person back on. And go again and come home. Go again and come home. And keep on doing that. And over time you'll notice that your fear in social situations when you're not being somebody else will decrease. Now, I'm not encouraging you to permanently do this change of personalities. I mean, I'm just telling you what worked for me, and I hope that it'll work for you too. If you're interested to ask questions or you want to know how I dealt with my phobias, let me know. I'll make another video. Thank you very much for paying attention, and I hope that you have success as well with your social anxiety. Bye.